Today's target will be solving quadratics. By the end of today's lesson, you will be able to identify the standard form of a quadratic equation. You'll be able to recognize from the graph of a quadratic how many solutions are present, and you'll be able to use your calculator to solve a quadratic. Let's start by looking at standard form. This is the standard form of a quadratic equation. That's ax squared plus bx plus c. When we're solving a quadratic equation, we replace the y with a 0. So with replacing that y with a 0, you might also see standard form as 0 equals ax squared plus bx plus c. That's only when we're solving for a quadratic, because when we're solving, we want to set it equal to 0 because we're looking for x values that make the equation equal to 0. That's why solutions, roots, and zeros all have the same meaning. So make a little side note, all of those terms mean the same, solutions, roots, or zeros, it's all the same process. But understand that we want it in standard form, we want it equal to 0. With that being said, I've got two equations here. One of them is in standard form, one of them is not. We'll call them equation A and equation B. Which one do you think is in standard form? If you said A, you would be correct. A is in standard form. And it is in standard form because it's equal to 0. Equation B is not in standard form. It is not in standard form because it's equal to negative 8x. So if we want to transform this into standard form, we need to get everything on the same side. So what we want to do there is we want to make it equal to 0. So I'm going to take this term and I'm going to do the opposite. So it's negative 8x. I'm going to add 8x to both sides. Negative 8 plus 8 cancels out, leaves me with nothing. So that's how we get a 0. On the left side, I've got three different terms. None of them are like terms, so please do not combine this. This does not become x squared plus 20x. X squared plus 8x plus 12. Now that it's equal to 0, it's now in standard form, so it's now ready to be solved. So make a note of that. It needs to be in standard form before you can go about solving it by graphing. So there's target number 1. Target number 2 is recognizing how many solutions are present. So there's three different scenarios. Scenario number 1 would be 2 solutions. If there are 2 solutions, it's going to cross the graph twice. So you'd have a solution here and a solution here. Scenario number 2 would be 1 solution. 1 solution is where the graph comes up, touches the x-axis, then turns around and goes the other way. So here it just touches the graph once. The vertex in this case is on the graph, so there'd be 1 solution. The third scenario is no solutions. And that's when you have a parabola that's never going to cross the x-axis. Both arrows are pointing up. Nowhere does it cross the x-axis, so there are no solutions. You need to be able to recognize these three. So when you use the when you use the calculator to solve by graphing, you know how many solutions you should find. With all that being said, let's go through the steps we're going to use to solve a quadratic on the calculator. Once we have it in standard form, we want to take the first part and we're going to put that in as y1, and then we're going to take 0 and we're going to put that in as y2. So I've already done that. Save us a little bit of time. You'll see that y1 is x squared minus 2x minus 8, y2 is 0. So I'm going to go ahead and graph it. So step 1 would be to graph. Step 2, we want to find the intersection That would be where the graph crosses the x-axis. Where the graph intersects the x-axis. So you'll notice looking at the graph, we have the parabola. That's our quadratic. That's x squared minus 2x minus 8. You don't see y equals 0 because y equals 0 is simply the x-axis. So we do have two lines here. The second line is hidden. We're going to look for where do they intersect. We're looking for these 2 points. So to do that, we're going to go second. That's that blue button. And then you're going to press trace. And then you're going to choose option number 5. So second, look where the cursor is. And then trace. Look where that cursor is. Gets us to this calculate menu. Then we're going to select option number 5. And it'll say first curve. When it says first curve, you're going to press enter. And then it's going to say second curve. Whoops. And you're going to press enter again. So enter a second time. And then it's going to say guess. When it says guess, we have to take that cursor. If you look in the middle of the screen, you see that sorry, I cannot talk today apparently. That flashing or blinking cursor. You need to move that to one of the two solutions. So I'm going to move it over here. Doesn't have to be perfect, it's going to be close. And then I'm going to press enter. So it tells me my first intersection is x equals -2. Now you'll notice by looking at the graph, that is our first scenario. We have two places where it crosses the x-axis, so we should have two solutions. So we got our first solution is x equals -2. We need to go back and find the second. So to find the second, we're going to repeat the process. So that means we're going to go second, calc, option number 5, first curve, enter, second curve, enter. And now you see it's blinking. We're up to guess, and it's blinking on the previous solution. So now we're going to move the cursor to the second solution. And press enter. So I'm going to hit this arrow over to the right until we get close to that second solution. Press enter, and my second solution is x equals 4. So that works every time. Do keep in mind that if you see a graph where you might see this, that would be no solution. If you saw a graph where it touched and then turned around, that would be one solution, so you wouldn't have to repeat the process. But do keep in mind what you expect to be the solution in terms of whether there's two solutions, one solution, or no solution, so that you don't do more work than necessary. If there's only one solution, don't try to look for a second. If there's no solutions, you shouldn't be doing any of this. You would immediately write no solution and move on to the next problem. So make sure you've got these steps written down, look over them, practice them in class when you get a TI-84 in your hands. And as always, if you have questions, make sure you let me know in class.